Good morning, everyone. Welcome to 6 Steps to a Successful CRM Implementation. I'm Jiggy Patel, Head of our Customer Experience here at Gold Vision, and I'm just going to take you through some steps to ensure that you have a successful implementation and some things to think about along the way as well. I will be recording this session, so it will be available afterwards if anyone would like a copy of it, and I'll make it available on LinkedIn and platforms as well. So let's start. There are 6 key things to think about in terms of CRM success. And starting with each of these, the first thing is your goals, your people, your implementation process, the data that you have, the training and the partner that you're actually working with. CRM success is different for every customer. And what success means will be based on the path that you actually take. And that will depend on, of course, the goals that you set, but the people you have, the time that you've got available, and also what's important to you. So there are a number of different things to think about, but ultimately, what are the goals that you want to achieve to be able to get to the success that you want? For a lot of customers that we work with, thinking about goals, as a vanilla CRM out-of-the-box solution just won't cut it. So do think about your key business and the goals that are set internally. Now, we've broken these goals down into 3 distinct teams. You might want to think about, for instance, your sales team, your management team, but also the business as a whole. You might be setting goals not just for your sales team, but your sales and marketing teams and other teams that you're working with also. And for that team, it might be a case of, what are they thinking about? A better process to increase their sales, less clicks, to be able to better qualify, but how do I manage my sales team and what visibility can I get as well? From a management perspective, in terms of goals, you might be thinking, well, now that we've got one source to hold all of our data, and that now gives us the centralized view. Ultimately, that's going to help us increase our efficiency and produce some cost saving as well. But above all of this, we want to be able to analyze the data that we've got, but also have people accountable for the information that they're putting in. From a business perspective, think about automating tasks to make life easier on a day-to-day basis for the users that you've got, helping people to prioritize their workload and the opportunities that they're working on so that they don't miss anything. But also, you may be thinking about increasing customer retention as a business goal. From a high level, think about your business goals as, what are your must-haves versus, well, what's my wish list? And try and break it down, break your CRM project down into, well, what are we going to have in scope maybe for the beginning of the project, and what might we want to phase in at a later time? So with your goals, define them and write them down so that you can come back to them, and certainly have your CRM provider work with you to try and attain realistic goals, and they will know what's achievable and in the timescale that that's achievable in. Next, think about people and who will take ownership. Again, we've broken this down, and firstly think about an internal project team. Initially, think about that internal project team as being decision makers. You will want to make sure that there are a small team of people who have the confidence and authority to make quick decisions about your CRM solution and what's in it and how your project is going, but also draw from other people as they need to throughout this process. Ultimately, whether this is one person or multiple people, and quite often, depending on the size and the scale of your project, you might want to have those decision makers from each function within the business. These people can then be your CRM super users, and along your CRM process, they can be really key to help you ensure that you've got user buy-in, user engagement through every step of the way. Ultimately, they want this process to be nice and easy on a day-to-day basis for the team of actual users, and of course those super users can be the voice to make sure that that's heard. These super users, realistically, they need to know your current business processes inside out, which is why it can be useful to have a number of people from different departments, because these people will ultimately make your CRM more day-to-day practical. Have a CRM project team. Work with your CRM provider to make sure that you have an expert CRM consultant that works with you throughout your whole process. A good CRM provider will make sure that there is no gap between the sales process that you're working on and the actual implementation that you're embarking on. Here at Gold Vision, we have the concept of a sales handover. So in the sales process, typically we have implementation consultants involved as well, but that sales handover, whoever's been involved in it, will hand over to an implementation consultant and typically still be involved at the scoping stage and throughout the project, just a touch in. Your CRM consultant will be there to help take the pressure from you, and should you have any questions along the way, because they've been involved from the beginning, should be able to help and advise you through every step. Make sure when you're embarking on your CRM project and you're thinking about the people that you've got, be realistic about the time and the resource that you've got available. This is your project at the end of the day, and you can set the pace. Certainly here at Gold Vision, we can work as quickly or as slowly as your pace requires. And of course, review your implementation process. You may have put in milestones, goals at the beginning of the project, but review those goals and milestones along the way to check that they're realistic, but also to measure the fact that you will be able to achieve them. And your CRM provider should work with you to make sure that you're on track and advise if there are alternative processes to help you keep you on track as well. So coming to the CRM process, how do you implement CRM? Well, certainly think about a provider that has a clear step-by-step process and can guide you along the way. Help them to understand what your schedule is and any project milestones that you've thought about in terms of goal setting, so that we can be realistic about the start and the finish and the go live of the project. Do absolutely be transparent about your work records, and don't pick a go live date where you've got a heavy amount of workload on your user base and they're going to find it difficult to adopt the CRM. Pick a time that's right for you, where you've got some clear open space. And of course, when it comes to user acceptance, you want your team to have that clear open time so that they can be involved in user acceptance, refining the processes and testing the process ongoing, but also that they feel empowered to give good feedback and make any changes where they are necessary. Again, talk to your CRM provider about the implementation process that they work through. Certainly here at Gold Vision, we work through an implementation process that includes, for instance, scoping, planning, the configuration of your CRM, data conversion and also data import, user training, but also go live and ongoing support following that go live. So let's concentrate for a minute on the configuration process. CRM configuration done right will need to involve both your internal team and your CRM project team. Again, go back to the actual goals that were originally set. Think about those goals, think about your quick wins, think about your wish list and phasing your project. Map out your business process with your consultant. A good CRM provider will work with you right at the beginning of your project to understand your business process and help you understand where in your CRM system that business process now fits. Here at Gold Vision, what we do is work with you to customize those screens. Now, typically, we will provide some administrative training right at the beginning of your project so that you've got a good idea of the structure of Gold Vision and you can understand how those screens need to be customized, but you're empowered to make any changes after your actual go live as well. During the configuration process, don't simply think about the fields that you want on screens, but also think about workflow and how workflow might assist your team. Workflow, an automated workflow, is something that you might think about at the beginning, but typically you might come back to workflow later on in your CRM lifecycle to improve the way that the teams work. Do think about very early on engaging the different business teams that you're working with and understand what's important for different business teams in terms of what they would like from their CRM. With our implementation process here at Gold Vision, we certainly have some key project planning documents, and typically we actually set you some homework before the configuration phase starts. And what this allows you to do is have your internal time with your project teams to think about not just the goals, but the different fields, the different business processes you would like involved in CRM, but to have those discussions and sometimes arguments to think about which fields go where before your CRM consultant gets involved. That just makes the whole process go much, much quicker. And of course, it allows you to then have a fully customized system from start to finish within a very short space of time. So if there are disagreements about which processes, which fields, try and have those internal conversations first before you come to your CRM consultant, who can then advise you which is preferable, where you might want to go back to. Your CRM provider should also go back to your goals at this stage to keep hitting on what those key goals are. We certainly push our customers to think about, well, is a goal keeping it simple, or is a goal making sure the process is as automated as possible? That allows us to keep coming back to those individual processes throughout the life cycle of your project. Next, think about data. Data is really important as part of your CRM project, and it's really important to think about it right up front. Data can come in various sources, but think about what data is insightful for me and what will give my team insightful information should I import it into my CRM. I've certainly worked with a number of customers where I've advised they've had a number of different data sources, and I've advised them to either strip it back or think about the data that's going to be most insightful, but also the data that's going to be most clean. I've certainly worked with a number of customers where I've had, well, I need at least the last 10 years worth of data imported into my CRM, but that can have a massive detrimental and risk factor to the project. There was one particular customer, for instance, who we imported a huge amount of data. It wasn't cleansed in advance, but that totally risked the project when it went live, because there were, in some cases, 3 or 4 duplicates of the same record, and it meant the users just didn't know which record they should be updating, because the data cleansing exercise was decided to be had during the go live phase. We all know when it comes to data cleansing, if you don't do it at the beginning, you're not likely to get to it. So certainly think about any data cleansing before you actually import that data, because you risk not ever getting to it and then risk that user buy-in following that project. Incidentally, with that particular project, it was only 2 weeks after go live that the customer came back and said, actually, please can you now remove everything but the last year's worth of data, because my sales team are just distracted from the information that's in there, and typically a lot of the contacts that are there are no longer with us, or the information and notes that's there just isn't meaningful anymore. So think about cost versus benefit when it comes to data and your CRM system. It can be very costly if you have a number of data sources or a huge amount of data that's really not going to give you any benefit. If you have spreadsheets and they have hundreds of fields on them and you'd like to import them just in case that's useful in the future, think again. If you're going to import the data and remove the fields from screen, I would advise not importing that information in the first place, but having it available historically so that you can go back to it should you need to at any stage in the future. So data can be important, not just for, how expensive is this data exercise going to be, but think about the user engagement. A dirty system from the start won't get user buy-in ongoing, and that's ultimately what you're trying to achieve with CRM. Work with your CRM provider to understand the data structure that they actually use. A lot of CRM systems are different, and some CRM providers require quite a strict structure of that data before it can be imported. Here at Gold Vision, as long as it's in a CSV file format, we actually do recommend that you send us data samples of your data, and we can advise you of the best way to clean it or to get it ready for your CRM project. Next, come on to training. Feel confident with your new CRM, and again, make sure that your provider can give you a number of different options when it comes to training. Try not to get involved in a provider that simply has stock web videos that you have to watch. Typically, for CRM, your training should be tailored to your business process, and those training sessions should be short. Certainly here at Gold Vision, we offer a variety of web training, and of course, when we're not involved in a pandemic, in-person training as well. As the software author and specialist, we typically work with the customer to identify the key business processes and make sure that the training revolves around those processes. Not every user will need to be involved in every single web session, so it's quite good to put together a timetable which helps your users understand which sessions they should go on, and to obviously segment that training into smaller chunks to help them take that in. Work with your CRM provider because they may offer either train the trainer training, and this is where having that initial super user team can be really important. Those initial super users will have been involved throughout the configuration process, the data mapping process, the scoping process, and we can now work with them to train how the Gold Vision processes will work. Alternatively, you may want us involved in all user training, in which case, again, we still break down the processes into smaller chunks, but it means that rather than the super users being involved in that training, your Gold Vision consultant will be involved in that training. Hopefully by the end of your user training sessions, you've got user acceptance from each of your users, and we can now go live. Hopefully, having gone live with your CRM project, your team feel empowered to go ahead and use the processes that they've learned in the training session. Here at Gold Vision, we keep the gap between user training and go live very minimal. In fact, typically during the training sessions, we work with the customer to make sure that we can give the message that you've now had your user training, start using the system. There shouldn't be a gap or a big bang day. Start getting your team empowered to use their everyday processes within the system. Ultimately, for your CRM project to work, pick the right partner. Here at Gold Vision, we certainly like to make the difference and ensure that our product, Gold Vision, offers value for money, is powerful and intuitive, but also you've got all of the tools along the way through your CRM project to make sure that this is scalable for you and future-proof for you. Ultimately, you want to pick a trusted partner who you know is going to work with you along the way and be supportive of the relationship that you've got. Thank you very much for listening to this webinar. Please feel free to ask any questions that you may have, or ultimately stay on the line if would like to have a further discussion with me. Thank you for your time.